the Nuggets are mine. And whether or not they are the juggernaut, kind of infallible, walking Western Conference Finals appearance that they've been described as all season, that their 57-win total would lead you to believe they are. And it truly is just a question. I'm not here to tell you they aren't. I'm not here to say, shut up with any argument of any other team in the West. Denver is just walking into this and it's over. I think it's just a little more open to discussion than we've kind of allowed it to be. They had a dominant postseason last year. They only lost 4 games. 57 wins now, which I believe is the best regular season that Nikola Jokic has ever had. He's about to win another MVP. And so I think they're just kind of up here in a way that deserves a closer look, Chris. So how are you feeling about Denver heading into this? Do you think of them as, like, I don't even have to wonder about it until the third round? Or are you going to be looking at a Lakers-Nuggets series a little closely, or a second-round series, and actually thinking, hey, Denver might lose here?
I trust the Nuggets more than any team in the league. It's not even a question. Could they lose at some point? Sure. Are they a lock to win the finals? I don't think so. I think Boston could win it. I think it's possible someone beats them in the West.
Nobody's a lock to win the finals. Yeah.
Right. Like this doesn't feel like the Warriors like at their peak or anything like that in terms of just like the talent's overwhelming and like it's hard to see. Even then, James Harden almost did it. Shut up. I don't think there is a team in the league that if you're playing a series, if you're playing one game, a game 7 perhaps, that you would trust to execute on offense because of Nikola Jokic more than anyone else, but also Jamal Murray, also because all those guys know how to play their roles. Because we saw that work so well last year. We also understand that even if they don't have the apex perimeter defender, Jokic isn't your traditional center defensive rim protector kind of guy. That team knows how to defend as a team at an insanely high level, be in sync, and not make dumb mistakes and cost themselves. Like they know how to just lock that in, regardless of who's on the floor, regardless of what's going on. That team, even if like they just lost to the Spurs in a pretty weird way, I don't really care. I just think I trust that team more than any other team in the league, and I would be surprised, Brendon, if you look at their bracket. Like, I'm picking them against the Wolves. I think, like,
well, the Wolves got to get there first, my friend.
Yeah, they got to beat your Phoenix Suns.
That's
like,
that's a question to go here. Is who's their worst matchup to you in a vacuum in the West? If you look at the 8 teams,
was going to go the same way.
Yeah, the 8 teams we think will make it. I mean, Wes and I did the play-in preview. I think we're both expecting, we'll already know the outcome. We're recording this early, whatever. But without going too far in the direction because of that, let's just say include all 4 of the play-in teams. Who do they match up with the worst? Who would you be the most afraid of to go through if you're Denver?
Dallas or Phoenix, I think, is where I would go. I think
and they might have to play both.
They might have to play both. And I think I would still pick them, but if you're thinking about the recipe, it is guys who can attack the scorers who are physical and who are big, who can attack the middle of the floor from the perimeter, who are overwhelm you defensively one-on-one in the spots, and also can just get absolutely hot and maybe keep up with you offensively, right? Like, I think that's the path. If it's Phoenix, it's Durant and Booker. Good luck. Like, if they get hot, they can match what Denver can do. If it's Dallas, we have seen that team get to the rim a ton, driven by Kyrie and Luka, and it's Kyrie and Luka. Like, it is not the most fancy thing we can say here, most sophisticated basketball thing, but those guys can absolutely cook. And Luka is like maybe the second or third best player in the league right now. Like, and he's playing at an insane level. Luka, like, to me, would be the second MVP. He'd be second MVP to me.
Luka is one of the players that I think actually would pull apart Denver's defense in a way that almost basically nobody else can. They've basically built this type of defense where you're not going to make them uncomfortable. You're not going to get them to do things that they haven't decided the night before the game that they're going to be doing. They're going to have early help at the rim. They're going to rotate off of that. They know how they want to put Jokic and when. They're a good transition defense. They have size, and they know how to send help from different places to maximize Michael Porter Jr.'s wingspan and Aaron Gordon's strength and all those things. Luka blows that apart, right? He just kind of can will things into existence because of his versatility as a scorer, the range you have to guard him at, the way he can find his teammates, even through help and around awkward angles and everything else. So I would completely agree. But you mentioned the middle of the floor. What's interesting about this team to me, and one of the questions I have is, last season they were a bottom 5 team in terms of rim field goal percentage allowed. This season, they're top 10 in that category. They've basically done a 180. That really surprised me looking at the numbers, and it's a big part of why their defense is actually 9th in the NBA this season as opposed to, I believe in the regular season last year it was 17th. Sometimes it's just going to be season-to-season stuff happens, but Peyton Watson might be part of the explanation there. He has a 5.0 block rate. Like, the guy is a walking created turnover at like 6'8" somehow. He's really, really good. But that can't explain all of it. So maybe they've just continued to grease the wheels of that system I mentioned at the beginning of this whole rant to an even higher level, and they're just making it even harder to get what you want and even easier for them to do what they want to do as a defense. But if that can keep up, Chris, you're talking about a defense that's not just, hey, you got to outscore them because their defense sucks and they're going to score 120. You just got to score 122. What if they get stops more than they did last year? I guess that goes in the direction of they're a more polished machine here heading into the playoffs. But the part that does nag at me is their bench. I think I trust even less heading into the playoffs than I did last year.
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson has been pretty bad this season, and I think that's not getting enough attention.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's just they have guys that you need to just see what it's going to look like. But, like, Peyton Watson, I'm a fan. I love how weird he kind of is. I love the way he plays. I love, like, the way that they empower younger guys. But it carries risk. There's a reason that year over year – what teams in their position often do is like, hey, we're just going to go, like they had Jeff Green last year. We're going to get a bunch of Jeff Green types. Reggie Jackson's, I guess, they're one example of that this year, but they fill out the roster with veterans who you kind of theoretically know what they do, and then you
Watson's
like, run them out.
the only guy that fits what you're saying. I mean, Christian Brown, they already saw last year. He's in year 2 now. He's been good all season. Reggie Jackson is a vet. They have Justin Holiday. They have Zeke Naji as a break glass in case of emergency option as a big. So it's really just Watson that is shaky in terms of just not having seen it before.
Yeah, like you're probably not going to see some of the other guys, but it's also just, okay, the minutes where it's Jackson, I mean, frankly, like how they ramp up Murray will be interesting. He played 31 minutes a game in the regular season. I think like that's pretty intentional. Is he getting up to 40? Like, what does that look like for the load on Murray? I mean, that to me is like another part of this. It's like, how much can you minimize the minutes on the floor for Jackson? Like Murray's played, 39 in a game recently. He played 36 recently, but it's not consistently like blogging the heavy minutes. What do his legs look like as you scale this up, and how fast can he acclimate? I think, Brendon, it comes back to this. The last 7 minutes of a game, they could be down like 10 and put that starting 5 on the floor. That is just awesome. And I'd be like, sure, great. You're probably going to figure this out and win this game. You know what I mean? It's that good.
Best 5-man unit in the NBA. Third best fourth quarter team in the NBA by net rating this season. Second best clutch team in the NBA by total plus minus. So those indicators are still exactly where you would want them. I would say last season in the playoffs, I pulled this number, Chris. The Nuggets were plus 5.5 per 100 possessions with Jokic off the court. Does that continue? Does playoff MPJ arrive again, where he looked like an all-star and even just survived a cold shooting streak that went under the radar because they played an awful team in Miami, relatively speaking, to most finals appearances in NBA history? And he was able to weather a cold finals because he was so good as a rebounder and as a defender and in transition and everything else. And I think even Aaron Gordon has been a little worse on offense this season. That's a guy at the beginning of last year we talked about as an all-star candidate. He was averaging close to 20 a game, making a passable number of threes. His three-point shooting is tanked. He doesn't have to do a lot because Murray's been healthier and they have some more shooting offensive options off the bench like Jackson and even Holiday, who's more of a shooter, who they've played a lot this year. But a lot of things clicked into place around Jokic that I just don't think are given this time around. And yes, you can win individual games with just your 5 best guys and being crazy in the clutch, but what if you're consistently going into fourth quarters down 8? You know, what if your bench falls apart and it's not even 40 minutes, but you need a game 5 where all your guys play 45 minutes because it's just that bleak outside of those 5. I think they didn't run into a lot of that last year. They could this year. The West is better. That's my point.
Yeah, I think particularly if things go a certain way. There's just going to be matchups where you need the best version of all these guys, I think, to get through these series. I think to your point, like even if I really think highly of that, to your point, it's like if you get a Phoenix team that is rolling, that's one thing. If you get Dallas the way they're playing, I think that's something. Heck, I mean, even if it's Minnesota, like you're gonna have to your process is gonna need to be on point. We're not that far removed from Minnesota putting together one of the best defensive performances of any team in this entire season over a single game against Denver, right? Like it's not like that was that long ago. There's a lot of and would they be like if you were gonna say today handicap the entire playoffs, would they be your number one? Like that's the team I'm kind of looking at as my favorite right now. Or would you go Boston? Like how would you rank them kind of side by side?
Because I think the East is worse, and I think also has a lot of uncertainty, like we talked about with a lot of those teams. So that's the point. That's why I'm bringing Denver up is. I wouldn't say the West was weak last year, but they faced a Minnesota team going through its very first time together, a Suns team that was basically integrating Kevin Durant in real time and had like 6 players who were NBA caliber in its rotation. And then in the Western Conference Finals, a Lakers team that kind of was just outmatched. They swept them. You know, are you getting that draw 3 times in a row of teams that you can take advantage of to such a degree, or are you going to run into teams that are feeling and running on just as high a level as you are, coupled with your own team having more questions? And I think that's what the Nuggets are going to have to prove. History would tell us, Chris, a player as great as Nikola Jokic, a team with that much chemistry and history together, a good coach, all that, it's going to rise to the top. But I just don't think it's as sure of a thing as we've kind of been. Like, we've gotten to the point where the back half of the season this year, we barely even talked about the Nuggets. Just like, yeah, whatever. I don't think they're yeah, whatever.
I think they are, to me, they are yeah, whatever, in the sense that, like, I trust it, but I think the path to your point is harder. That's kind of, I think, where I fall.